I've got some icebreaker questions to start off with.
Shoot.
So we're here today to talk about anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of your just like unreasonable fears? Something that makes no sense but gives you anxiety.
Okay. Two things. First thing is enclosed water slides that are like the tube.
Oh my God.
I hate those.
I feel like
Those
that
are
would
the
give anybody
worst.
anxiety.
Right. And birds.
Birds.
I hate birds.
Have you seen Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds?
No.
You should check it out sometime. It'll give you massive anxiety. Anxiety is one of the most defining symptoms of our generation. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, nearly 21% of adults in the United States suffer from mental health disorders related to anxiety, depression, or suicidal thoughts. And let's face it, there's a lot to be anxious about. We've got traumatic events, family, health, addiction, our jobs, our money, and the list could go on forever. And what we're learning is this is not simply just a spiritual problem, but it's a mental health problem as well. It's not something we can just pray away. And that's what we're here to explore today. How do we navigate the world of mental health? What's harmful? What's helpful? And how do we find peace in the chaos of today's modern world? This is episode 10 of the Hills and Hollows podcast. So you spoke a little bit about genetics and chemicals in your brain,
right.
And where does medicine fall into this? Because there's Christians and there's non-Christians on both sides of the field. Like, oh, medicine is going to be your only solution, and other people who are like, Jesus is your only solution.
Right.
Where's the balance in that?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to preface this just by saying, like, you know yourself. And you know what's best for you. And so I think that as long as you have that in mind when you make decisions, I think that you just need to trust yourself. And for me personally, I did seek, medical help, and I see a therapist, and I do take medication. And for me, honestly, it's like, if this is going to make me feel a little bit more like myself, if it's going to make me be a little bit of a better parent, if it's going to make me a little bit more connected with my friends, if it's going to affect me so that my life just doesn't feel like miserable, then it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it for me. But, and other people might not feel that way, and that's okay too. But, as Christians, as a believer, I also know that I kind of have a little bit of a leg up, so to say, because I don't have to do it alone.
Right.
And, the journey, even through the medicine and doctor, whatever, we know that the Lord created us. He knows everything about us. And so because of that, he also knows the answer to healing as well. And so I think it just kind of all comes into this big, crazy, beautiful combination of who we are and who God created us to be, and then also receiving the help that we need and not being sorry for it.
So is this something you feel like you've conquered, or is it an ongoing process? And if it is an ongoing process, how do you deal with the anxiety and the depression when it flares up?
Mm-hmm. Right. So the thing about anxiety, depression is it's not something that it just goes away. It's not something, you take like medicine for 7 days and then you're fine, or, it's not something that you, like you said earlier, it's not something that you can just pray away. It takes a lot of work. And I feel like, essentially it's a battle of, claiming your peace and then keeping it. And that does take some work. And, you have seasons that are better than others, days that are better than others. But the most important thing I have learned is to identify things that I know will trigger anxious thoughts or, intrusive thoughts. And then either one, avoid them, or two, if they're unavoidable, or if it's not wise, or if it's unhealthy to avoid, then I can kind of plan ahead, and I can plan to feel those feelings, and then be able to cope in a little bit healthier way, just by being able to prepare for that. So
that's great. From a Christian to a Christian,
right.
Of someone who deals with anxiety and depression, what advice would you have for them?
For me, one hurdle that I kind of had to get over is realizing that my mental health was not a direct reflection, or I guess a thermostat that reflected my relationship with Christ. My relationship with the Lord is not determined by my mental health. And honestly, like, mental health as well as all kinds of other things are kind of thrown out the window with the fallen Adam and Eve. And now, we have a world, in sin that we live in. God's character is not to give us some sick or backwards consequence, for something that we got or we deserved, because all of those things were nailed to the cross with Jesus, so it's not something where, the Lord's out to get us or he's punishing us. Now he might be desiring our attention. And, as believers, we know that, there's really no end to our journey. The goal is always to grow deeper in a relationship with the Lord, and, to learn the word and to apply things in a more rich way in your life. And, it's a growing process that doesn't really end. And so, and that's no exception to whenever you are feeling down or, anxious or depressed, it's still super important to lean into that. And even more so sometimes, because if there's one thing that I know, it's that the Lord can teach you a ton when you've exhausted all other options and you just have to focus on him.
So Mary, in closing, what's one piece of advice you want to share with everybody out there?
I think whether you suffer from mental illness or not, just don't be a jerk. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what people are going through. You just don't. What you see on the outside can be so far from what's going on inside their brain or inside their heart. And so it's really important to just be kind and be grace-filled and patient. And so, yeah, don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. You heard it here. Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Mary. Thank you for being open.
Thank you so much for having me.
And honest, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. As always, you can stay connected with us online, foothills.cc/hills and hollows. And we'll see you next week.